Closure. The day was packing itself up as tidily as a salesman who has sold enough of his wares to be totally satisfied. The evening cup of tea had just been right, Amma thought. Flavoursome without the acrid taste of overbrewed leaves. The biscuits that accompanied it had felt crisp and fresh beneath her teeth, and the namkeen was the way she liked it, mildly spicy. And now the sun was gathering up its brilliant robes, slipping beneath the high rises, leaving a faint evanescence behind. Even as Amma watched this luminous exit, darkness moved in, so swiftly that it enclosed her before she realized that the distinct landscape of the city was just a vista of shadowy shapes now. She was savoring the moment, letting the cloak of invisibility wrap around her, letting herself dissolve into it when the maid, Mamta, bustled in and switched on the light with an officious click. Why do you sit in the dark, Ammaji? She scolded. As usual, Amma masked her irritation with facetiousness. To save electricity, she said. It was the only way to cope with Mamta's earnestness. What made it more enjoyable was the fact that though Mamta did throw her a suspicious glance once in a while, Amma was positive that each busy cell in the girl's body staunchly believed that someone as old as Amma couldn't crack jokes. Save electricity. Mamta's shapely eyebrows, made possible through Amma's largesse, arched up. Amma ji, don't you know how much your son and daughter-in-law earn? How much? Amma asked innocently. But Mamta avoided this trap. She wrapped her sari pallu around her waist with an efficient air and said, If you don't know, how could I, a mere servant, know? Amma squeezed the budding smile back into her mouth. She knew what an accomplished eavesdropper Mamta was. She'd come upon her several times, poised against Samar and Manisha's bedroom door, as if she'd halted in the act of knocking. Not that Amma blamed her too much. Knowledge was power, wasn't it? And who needed it more than a servant girl? All right, Ammaji, Mamta went on. What should I cook today? You know, they're out for dinner. They will go there straight from office. Out for dinner? Suddenly, Amma was overcome with an immense exhaustion. She had made too many such decisions in her life, and the thought of one more capsized the boat of her composure without warning. Cook whatever you want, she said. I'm going out too. Amma ji, Amma ji. Mamta's fine brows would have disappeared into her hair if the doorbell hadn't rung just then. Amma shook her head, the way one jiggles a dysfunctional appliance to force it to work. What possessed her to say that? Mamta returned, looking mystified. No, troubled, and handed Amma a note. Amma gazed at it for a long while, her breath coming with a deliberate evenness while her face remained blank, then rose purposefully. Tell him I'm coming in a moment, she said, her voice unusually crisp. She stood before the mirror for a while, examining herself. Not too bad for 75, she thought inconsequentially, trying to smother the violent churning inside her. Strange how things happen when you least expect them. even when you've been waiting for them to happen. Jerkily, she ran a comb through her short grey hair. Her daughter in law, Manisha, had suggested this style, being least troublesome, and Amma hadn't resisted too much. Sometimes it was better to drift along with the dominant current and not waste energy that was becoming more precious as it became scarce. And what did it matter what her hair looked like? Her mouth could have done with a touch of lipstick, she thought. She always tried to look good, not just out of vanity, but rather to present a pleasant sight to the viewer. She was reaching for the lone tube on her dressing table when Mamta's wide eyed glance loomed beside her in the mirror. Amma frowned. Fond as she was of her, the girl became too familiar at times. Mamta, she said, emphasizing each word so that there should be no misunderstanding. Take that suitcase into the car. Amma ji! Mamta's clear voice quavered like an agitated sitar. When did you pack that? Where? Why are you going? Amma chose not to reply to that, though she could have said that she was free to go whenever and wherever she wished. She could have also told Mamta about the parable of the wise virgins in the Bible, but it wouldn't have made much sense to the girl. How would she know how important it was to always be ready? Mamta made a last frantic attempt. Please, let me call them. Let them be. Just carry the suitcase to the car. Amma's voice was harsh. Mamta fell apart then. Please don't go, Amma ji, she wept. Please, please forgive my impertinence. Haven't I looked after you the best way I could? Amma softened a bit. It's not your fault, child, she said. And now I have to go. She was very conscious of Mamta's trembling form half dragging the large suitcase to the car. She could forgive her for her smugness now, the thoughtless arrogance of her youth. Mamta looked even more stricken as the driver opened the door for Amma. Her mouth opened as if to say something as she clutched Amma's hands in farewell. Then it closed again helplessly. It was only when they were some distance from the house that Amma began to feel sorry for Mamta, remembering the sweat purling down her smooth dark face, the pain in her baffled eyes. In her own way, she had tried to be good to Amma. No, Amma really had no complaints. But of course, she could not satisfy everyone's curiosity. And then she herself didn't know where she was going, only that it was a summons that she could not refuse. She thought of the chain of events the simple action might unfold. Perhaps Mamta was already on the phone sobbing out the news. Perhaps her son Samar and Manisha were already driving home, their party interrupted, their so essential networking abandoned halfway. Perhaps her daughter in law Manisha was thinking, trust Amma to do something like this, interrupt an important evening. Perhaps Samar was thinking, oh God, did she have to leave like this? Conversely, Mamta might already be ransacking the room, going through the drawers, looking for neglected valuables. Amma wondered if she was capable of it. The eavesdropping made her think she could be. Well, she would be rewarded if she were. Amma had abandoned the old gold bangle, the one she had intended to give Stuti, her granddaughter, in the left hand drawer of her dressing table. Sometimes it gave her pleasure to be whimsical, leave it to destiny to decide who would receive what, whether they deserved it or not, rather than follow convention. Namaste, Ravi Shankar ji. And she had never been sure who had a better right to it. Stuti because of the ties of blood, or Mamta for services rendered. Mamta's snoopiness made her confident she would walk away with the prize. Stuti, who had grown distant both in terms of space and time, was in any case not around to claim it. The car negotiated the crowded streets with a sedate briskness, and now it was crossing the bridge. She glimpsed what looked like a row of low hills on the other side, and then the darkness vanished as suddenly as it had inundated her that evening. But it was not Mamta who switched on the light here. Amma felt confused. Was it already dawn? The car slowed down, stopped. We have arrived, madam, said the driver gravely, opening the door. Amma stepped out, stretched, and tidied the folds of her sari before entering the gate that emerged before her. Hello, Sonali. She wasn't sure what she felt at that moment, closing one door to open another. Would she miss Samar, Stuti, Manisha, Mamta, and all the other people she had left behind? Would they miss her? Perhaps. But closures took place all the time, didn't they? One climbed the ladder of life, leaving one rung behind to stand on another. We all get used to it, she thought. It doesn't really matter now. And this is how the story ends. Thanks so much for listening.